And welcome to the next episode of Exponential Minds. My name is Nikolas Badminton. I'm a futurist. I help my clients look out 5, 10, 20 years into the future so that we can build a more equitable and positive future for all. And on today's episode, I'm incredibly excited. And this is long overdue, a conversation with Chris Dancy, who's touted as the most connected man on earth. And the world is watching those connections carefully. For 25 years, Dancy has served in leadership within the technology and healthcare industries, specializing in the intersection of two. Chris entered the public dialogue concerning digital health as the media started to focus on wearable technologies, and he earned his moniker by utilizing up to 700 sensors, devices, applications, and services to track, analyze, and optimize his life, from his calorie intake to his spiritual well-being. This quantification enables him to see the connections of otherwise invisible data, resulting in dramatic upgrades to his health, productivity, and quality of life. And today, Chris helps organizations and audiences on a journey, a disruptive, breathtaking journey, as he calls it, into the future of computing when behavior becomes the ultimate interface. Chris is one of my favorite keynote speakers out there, speaking about what it means to be a cyborg in the modern world. And Chris, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. You know, every time I hear someone read that, I remember that at one point I paid someone to craft that.
So sometimes when I go on stage and people have downloaded my entire about page and it takes them 5 minutes to read it. It's not a good feeling, right? But so
I usually just tell the moderator, I'm like, just because they like want to do what you just said. So I just say, just when you introduce me, just say Google most connected. Just those two words, Chris. And then because like everyone's going to Google you anyway.
Right. And I Googled most connected. I went to your website. I Googled most connected, and yeah, you're all over the
34 countries. 34 countries. That's and in their native languages, most connected. You get me.
That's absolutely amazing. And
right.
It's interesting, Chris. We first came across each other at Cyborg Camp in Portland in 2013.
In Portland?
Yeah, I was at. That's before. I don't think we were chatting, but you were. I think you were at that at Portland Cyborg Camp, organized by Amber Case. Then I chatted to her and said, "Hey, Amber, why don't I do this in Vancouver?" Then I did it in Vancouver the next year, and you came to that as well.
I went to that too. At that point, I was in the news.
And you were in the news, and you were starting to quantify and capture everything, and that was awesome. And about 140 people came from all over the world to that one, so that was amazing. But then I sort of watched as you became this incredible person out in the world, connected. And at that point in time, you were a little heavier as an individual, and your journey was not only from what you looked like, but how you thought, and then how you went into becoming this kind of cyborg philosopher in a way. Mindful Cyborgs podcast, your MIT Cyborg Camp lecture was incredible. Everyone should go and watch that. But, Chris, can you just take us on a little bit of a journey on the last few years and how you became the most connected man in the world?
Well, gosh, I think you nailed it. So I think if you jump back from 2012 to 2008, in 2008, I turned 40 and I weighed about 320 pounds. I don't know that in kilos. Do you? Alexa.
It's a lot. It's about,
we could ask Alexa. It's a lot. Yeah. We just say it's fat in kilos. It's okay, Alexa. Yeah. So no, I turned 40 and, I spent a lot of time being employed, unemployed, angry. I smoked a lot, drank a lot, been on antidepressants for 22 years at that point. Benzodiazepines for 10 of those 22. It was interesting, but at that time in 2008, I also was kind of successful. It's like I was really well known for database systems, believe it or not. Like I was like the guy you hired. Like on 9/11, I built all the systems that was when the planes were coming down, all that kind of stuff. So I was weirdly well known for something that most people wouldn't know about today. So long story short, it dawned on me, hey, why don't I kind of watch what's going on? So from 2008 to 2012, when I saw you in Portland at Cyborg Camp, I constructed a bunch of little micro programs using RSS and Yahoo pipes, all those other things to grab data when I did anything digital and put it on a calendar. But what really made that interesting more than just a busy calendar was I then started categorizing, like this is social media and this is my environment and this is this. So the calendar allowed me to see really simply what my days were like. So imagine like if you could have an automatic diary. So that was pretty cool because then by 2012, so that was the beginning of me between that and 14, actually automating the reactions to data. So if you just collect enough data about yourself, that's interesting. You can Google and like, oh my gosh, I remember that day, just like Facebook tells you. But the really amazing thing is you then can say, okay, when you see 3 or 4 of this, tell me no more. When you see 2 or 3 of these and you know another one usually comes with an hour, at a half an hour, tell me, be careful. So think of it as GPS kind of for like if you knew the same drive and that drive is behaviors, you could say, hey, don't do this. So slowly, some of the first things that went were smoking, being able to stop the antidepressants, not getting as angry, because like I had just a simple sensor in my office. I still have it to this day. If I speak too loud, the lights dim. Right. Controlling what I eat. So literally just putting money to effort. Like you can eat anything you want if it's over $10 for a single meal, but anything less than $5 for a single meal, you better walk to.
Right.
Just simple things that like we take for granted. When I say them out loud, everyone's like, I know that. But like back then, it was like not obvious to me. And I think nowadays people are more used to being plugged in and watching everything be counted. So
people back then weren't telling you, they didn't want to tell you that the cheap meal was going to be particularly bad for you. They just made the drive-through bigger, right?
yeah, especially in America, you got double drive-throughs, and then
Right,
it's like,
exactly.
and then you got all this anxiety about drive-through protocol. Like, oh, I was here first. Damn, it's a French fry. Chill. So yeah. So by 2014, I at Cyborg Camp, a guy from Wired was behind me, wrote an article about it, and then I was in I can't remember, Bloomberg or something like that. Picked up a story. 2014, they put me on the cover of Bloomberg Business Week for the global tech issues, most disruptive person outside of Silicon Valley you've never heard of. And then 15, and then my TED Talk in 14. And then in 15, I kind of had this like this juggernaut of a career. I was like, everyone know who I was. Like, world's most connected. That's pretty cool. But I was still working for companies. So, you know what I mean? So like I still had like legit real jobs. I hadn't become like a thing yet where you like, we'll talk about thing. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. But like, so then in 15, I got Showtime approached me and wanted to do a special called Darknet. And I did that. And then that's on Netflix today. And then that was also the beginning of the deal for my book contract, which I then signed in 16. So 14, 15, 16 was kind of, I always think of it as it was the escape velocity to break out of, I have to go to an office.
Right.
Because it's not that I would love to go in office today, but no one will hire you when you're as Googleable as I am. You're like, when you've got TV shows and books, people think that you don't need to work. And that's not true. TV shows and books, the reason stars don't stop after a hit series because it doesn't pay the bills. It pays the bills then. Yeah. So it was this really interesting time. So 14 to 16 was really about me industrializing or commercializing kind of what I knew how to do, which I'm still kind of surprised we talk about it. But today in 2020, 5 years later, you can look at your phone and see your screen time. You can look at your phone and see your activity. I mean, all these things are no longer new. But to your point, kind of the cyborg philosopher also dawned in that time, which was, oh shit, this is happening to everyone. They just don't have as much of a hand in it as I did.
Yeah. What does it truly mean to the individual, but what does it truly mean for society and the relationships that you have within it, right?
Yeah, I mean, everyone, I hate to say it, but everybody now is linked through a pane of glass, but that's been that way for over 10 years. We just talk about now because of the pandemic, but again, we've put software controls around emotions, and I did it early, I did it often, and I think I know what works, and I think we're, again, we can go deeper into this, but I think there's some dangerous things we're doing when it comes to how we treat ourselves and other people, because we can treat people like preferences and not people.
Was this inevitable? I mean, I did a lecture earlier today and I spoke about Douglas Engelbart in 1968 doing the Motherwell demos. And there it was, every single piece of interface technology and whatever that we're going to play, that we use for Zoom calls and whatever. And, all the way back to like when man picked up a stone and used that to crack an egg open or whatever, right? Was this completely inevitable that we were going to end up being these transhumanist cyborgs? And is it inevitable that many people deny that that's who they are and want to try and normalize everything to be this new normalized functional state of society?
I think there are two competing things going on. Machines need to be homogenized and people need to be individualized. And what we've got right now, and the reason culture feels so frenetic, is you've got those two competing forces, right? So machines need to be made simple. Every interface, now here we are 10 years later, 80% of the population has a smartphone. So if you do this or this, they know exactly what you mean.
Right.
10 years ago, no one would know. So we've been homogenized as individuals, but as individuals, we're trying to find new ways we can do this. So the cult of celebrity, the cult of authenticity, all this kind of BS. I don't know if I can swear, but all the type of shit you see, all the kind of shit you see online.
Yeah.
You see, as soon as I said that, my mind went to, he has to throw a flag now on his podcast. Right? Couldn't even swear without thinking about the interface function that I wouldn't be involved with down the road. But that's how broken I am. But most people would say you're repaired, but that's a whole other story. So yeah, I do think that's it. And as far as inevitability, again, I'm working on a class with IBM and Oxford right now about modern mindfulness. And, just this morning, we're working on like one of the parts of it. And I said, what's the goal of this? And I go, I don't know. I said, okay, can we make the goal of this section destigmifying technology? Like, we've got to take the stench off of technology and how you use it. And there's something wrong with you. And I'm not advocating people get chipped or go all Kurzweilian. That's just not my deal. I mean, I think we're further than Kurzweil could have expected if we just look at our behaviors and responses to interface. I'm talking about, can we make people not feel like shit because people are walking around judging them for not looking up because they're worried or depressed and they're trying to find someone who would share their feelings. Can we make that okay?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, Chris. Okay, you're right. I'm like, okay, whatever.
And oftentimes we people are trying to do that in social media and the such like anyway, just to have a voice. I mean, you can, there's someone that's on Facebook or Instagram and they're taking selfies or they're taking pictures of their lunch or whatever. They're kind of crying out to say, hey, I'm okay, or I want to be okay, right? And
come on. Let's be gentle. I love you, so let's be gentle. I mean, we all have done it. Like everyone goes through. I always tell people I have a cyborg rating scale. And it walks you through these steps, because everyone goes through the selfie phase. Like, because everybody, it's like a baby finding a mirror. Like the first time you realize you can flip your camera, it's like damn it, I just want to I love myself. Like, it's anywhere I have a mirror, and I can put filters on it. So yeah, I do think that people who do that sort of thing I think there's some messaging there, but I think that's the other thing, Nicholas, is we have to be real careful when we say that taking selfies is a cry for help, because somebody will hear this voicemail, this call, who still take selfies.
Right. And people that actually take selfies, that it isn't a cry for help, but it's a cry for being for garnering celebrity. I want to talk a little bit more about this.
Sorry, I didn't mean to get too sensitive. I was just like,
no, it's all good. No, let's do this. Let's talk about this cyborg rating scale, right? I mean, you talked about implanted chips and whatever. I've got a implant in my left hand from the inimitable Emil Grafstra from dangerousthings.com.
Yeah.
And that was at a conference that I did the year after Cyborg Camp in Vancouver. And, where am I on the cyborg rating scale? But I don't have Facebook and I don't have Instagram. So am I in this like in-between area?
No. So what I did on my cyborg rating scales, I broke it down into 6 areas where you get a point for each area, and then depending on what you do. So I mean, if you've got an implantable, then you just get a point up in that area. I can share the screen with you, or I can send you a copy of it. Sure. But the idea is I just want to be able to have people get a score, and 0 to 1 points is human. 1 to 3 is augmented, 4 to 6 is quantified, 6 to 8 is human plus, 9 to 10 is human, transhuman stage 1, 10 plus is stage 2.
Right.
But to me, it's just because I don't think people realize how plugged in they are.
Right.
Like a lot of people, and they go, 600 sensors. What do where are they all? I'm like, do you not realize how many things are tracking you right now? Like, the problem isn't that I'm absurd. It's that you're unaware.
Right. Right. No, but having a lack of awareness is how a lot of big business makes money from this stuff.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, how do we build in morals and ethics into all of these interfaces so that when you do what I just literally had an interview on Sirius XM, and there was this large company that runs malls in Canada where I live, and they put in this self-help kiosks, information kiosks that were taking pictures of people and then storing that information in databases, and then they could derive emotion and age and who was stood with them and whatever. And but I was talking about having the ability to opt out, or the ability to earn money from that transaction, or the ability to just have those systems shut down when they're in the vicinity of them. But people don't think like this. I mean, it's difficult to design those kinds of mechanisms, right?
Well, I think that the challenge is in that I mean, it's so funny. I'm sure like you get approached by a bunch of businesses who think they've figured something out, and they're going to change the world. Like, you know what, if we took all your data, we could sell it. Even Andrew Yang has an entire website now about like, we're going to make you monetize it. I'm like, Andrew, like that, people have been doing that for 10 years. It's not going to happen. What people want is they want shit easy. Right. And then like, all the data we use now is just to get convenient stuff, like instantly send me anything. I'll give you my mother's data. So that's the messaging. We need to rephrase the messaging that, okay, not only is the coffee free and we'll pay you, but like you won't have to talk to any humans. Like more data goes into removing people from a process than it goes into actually making a process simpler, which is kind of when you talk about ethics, that's really where the ethics problem is. Isn't that we don't think about ethics. We don't think about like, how would you define ethical behavior? Because technology, again, it has to be homogenized and people have to be individualized. So then where do those two things meet? But I'll be honest, most days I'm just depressed because it's like, it's so simple now for me. Like I feel almost like I'm outside of time and reality, because I watch all this stuff going on and go, okay, this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like to watch people hopelessly distracted. And I don't think that's a technology thing. I think that's a human thing.
But it's a human thing that's been put under the microscope, because now we're collecting all the data that's saying, here it is.
Right.
It's over there. It's like, I liken it to, once you learn enough information about something, you can stand in a city and watch people on the street, and it's like Neo from the Matrix.
Yes. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
But I try not to use cyborg or sci-fi references, because then people think, oh, he's really weird. But it's strange. So like even now with coworkers or my husband, because I'm married now, I wasn't married when I met you, and also that kind of stuff. It's just like, I sometimes just kind of, I don't know, just feel strangely detached, but in a way that's comforting, until I'm forced to then re-engage in the fact that someone wants to talk about something that I understand the eventuality of already. So I've just gotten to the point now with most of my friends, if something starts going down the road I don't want, I go, listen, I love you. 6 months. We're going to set a timer right now. We'll talk about it in 6 months. And on my side, I'm going to write down what's going on. On your side, you're going to write down what you want to go on. And we're going to see who's right. I'm always right. The problem is data just gives you the ability, right? And just paying attention gives you the ability to see how that's going to go. The only variable that you really can't control is when you start to allow yourself to become slightly spiritual. And I think that's why my evolution went kind of from the mindful philosopher into kind of the woo-woo pagan, techno-pagan thing that I do now, which is like, I needed some serendipity, and the only way I could get it was engineer it.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I started doing the biohacking thing, and I do EMDR, and it fixed a whole bunch of PTSD, and then there was a whole world of psychedelics that you could sort of look at, and for the potential. Over the years, I became a lot more like, this is about healing trauma, this is about love and whatever. And now the things that I do to augment myself are deeply human, like whether it's an emotional code session or Psych K. I'm not sure if you've heard of these things, but or NLP work, or really working to disrupt how we think and what we learned from the ages of 0 to 6 years old, right? But what's the eventual trajectory? I mean, what is the trajectory of humanity right now? I mean, is it like one size fits all? Everyone's gonna fit to one or more of these 100 systems that are out in the world, and that will determine their personality, their ability to be recognized, the potential of future earnings, their education level, or whatever. Is that where we are now, or can we sort of shirk off all of these systems and say, hey, I'm going to go an alternative route?
You know, my publisher said to me once, you need to write a book about, just not doing all these things. I said, being digitally Amish isn't an option. Like, we believe we are, but like, again, that creates more of the, no tech good, tech bad. And like,
Right.
there's one thing like my Buddhist mindful cyborg phase taught me was like, don't make it dual, but which is weird because all most of tech is binary unless you get into quantum stuff, but then you have to go to D-Wave up in Canada. And also we'll leave that for another conversation. So I personally think the way it works is just, and it's because I'm very dystopian, it's just a mass homogenization. I just think everyone ends up becoming very similar, which again is just going to amplify the problems, but it'll also accelerate the solutions.
Yeah. And back in the day, that was culture, and it was like the clothing and the makeup or the body augmentation and whatever. And today it's, the $2,000 iPhone, right? Or whatever, it's like this.
And your phone, again, let's go there. Your phone gives a certain class of people the ability to do things. It started with blue text, green text. And then it's like, which version of the phone are you on? Can you actually, there was a time in 15 where you could only send haptic heartbeats if 2 people had watches. So like your ability to, just like on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, your ability to share emotions is limited by the interface. On Twitter, you have 2 emotions. On Facebook, you have 5. On LinkedIn, you have 6. But like even your devices allow you a certain amount of emotional presence with each other. So there's this capitalistic bent that's absolutely toxic that's built into keeping up. It's not about the latest device. It's about, we can act like that's what it is, but in the reality, like even when the phone started getting the really fancy cameras on them, and some people have those portrait shots, and then everybody on Twitter, like their photos were their portrait shot. And then as soon as the Animoji, everybody had Animoji, right? And like, why don't we call that out? Why don't we call that out? That is such bullshit, because they were just forcing people to get the latest. Sorry, you got me. You're making me so ranty today, Nikolas.
No, but that's good. Ranting's good. I mean, these are sensitive times, and when we see whether it's a new version of a phone or a new emoji gets released, or there's like this cultural dissonance that can be felt. It's sort of like energy in the world, right? Especially if you're speaking to younger people. You can just feel. I interviewed Melissa Escabegi in the first episode of this season of the podcast, and we talked about the new ascension of Twitter to OnlyFans, and TikTok as being this new renaissance of power in the world, and it's insane. But like one of the things that I was
K-pop is a political party.
Do you know what? I didn't realize the power of K-pop until I was sat in Seoul for an afternoon, and I was scrolling through TV like 5 hours later, and I literally watched something like 140 different K-pop bands on a channel dedicated to it. And it's like, I kind of get it. This is literally like these are people that are trying to create hope to get out of these skyscrapers, and this is like the new religion in a way, right?
Again, Amber Case. I know you want to. I'm going to just say her name once. I'm going to invoke Cyborg Godmother once. Amber Case was so prescient on all this, right? Everything from the talk in 2010 to the fact that she was, Ghost in the Shell and Serial Lane, the anime. She nailed all of it. But I think it just comes down to deeply neurotypical people talking about things that make them feel safe eventually become culture, which eventually becomes commercialized.
Right. And on that point as well, you write about, social and health and other aspects of life after applications, after screens, the invisible internet.
People get very angry. People get very angry with life after screens. No, what are you talking about? What will I complain about? Yeah.
But, we're going into a world like, machine learning. I talk about augmented reality a lot today. I think that's going to be a huge world. You were wearing Google Glass back in the day, and a lot of people thought it was pretty silly, but, all the way through Magic Leap and the other things that are going to be coming, it was just a drop in the ocean, right? But like what happened?
But what no one could have foreseen, again, you just nailed it. What no one could have foreseen is how AR and VR and all the other things literally have a neurological component that happened before them. So many people already walk around with neurological AR. They already see things through a filter that they would then film it on, right? These are deeply embedded skills that we carry with us. And again, young people are not weird because they think like this or do this. They're natural. So like if you have kids, we have a 10-year-old, right? So it's just like, I learned, it's like, okay, this is not weird for me to think that this is happening because it's happening.
Yeah. I've got a 13-week-year-old. a 13-week-old, sorry. And he's amazing, and I'm learning lots from him. And I'm how hard it is to keep him away from any screens or any technology at all.
Right.
Even children's toys are built with some kind of link and a progressive next step into the technological world or the screen or whatever, right? It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Well, Native Americans, like we don't hate on Native Americans because they traded beads. Like beads was their thing. Like, and like, just like when people say, like, wow, but kids always want screens. People want anything shiny. Like, it's less. This is not unique. This is not unique.
People still want to spend like $3 million on a yellow pinky ring diamond. I think P. Diddy did that once, right? And it's not enough to have the recognition. You want to have, the loot, the treasure, modern pirates.
Don't you find personally, Nicholas? Don't you find personally that status is changing? To me, like it's just changing. To me, it's like, do you notice it? Or do you know what I'm talking about? That status is no longer a thing. Status isn't status anymore. Do you notice this?
It does seem to be like, influencers and whatever is a certain thing. It doesn't feel like status to me anymore. It just feels like celebrity. Like, I mean, I grew up in the UK, which is a class system. It still is a class system. This is why Brexit happened. And, the class system is being perpetuated. When I came to live in Canada, that was all gone. In terms of status here, it's like, hey, are they a nice person or are they not a nice person? Are they going to do good for the community or are they not? That's how it works in Canada. I go down to the States and it's kind of similar, but it's just heavily politicized as well, right? So I don't know whether it's a status thing.
I think status is crumbling. I think status, I think celebrity crumbled. If there's anything that the pandemic did kill, it's celebrity. I mean, the backlash against celebrities at the beginning, I don't know what it was like in Canada, but it was all the, we're in this together, from there's so many articles written about, so now they're all sensitive, right? So now they're like Ryan Reynolds. They have to take all this time to make videos that humanize them, right? And it's just like, dude, you're not going to fool me. Like, it's the haves and have nots. But what I'm noticing is once celebrity crumble, I think we're seeing that the end of influencer, because at the end of the day, influencers are on a hamster wheel to their message because you can't change it. Right. And I just think for me, my success was always like, could I get paid to do what I want, but be able to change my mind?
Right.
That is like to ultimate success. I can feed and clothe my family, but I'm not tied to the message that people need me to have. Because to me, once you get influencer and celebrity, you're tied. You're done. Right. Like you got it. That's really, I don't know if this may even make sense, but I think about this all the time. Like, no, real success is like how I spend my time, not what I have to do.
But this is why I had a really interesting conversation about TikTok the other week. And it's, the biggest people on TikTok are 16-year-olds that have got a purity about who they are. And they just like dancing in front of a phone. It's all good, and it's like, this is interesting. Then what happens? The industry gets on top of them and says, now we must put you into these pockets of, now you've got representation. Now you can do advertising. Now you can present an award at the Billboard Awards or like Addison Rae or whatever. Ding, 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 ding. And so now like culture, culture is killing the idea of that purity in a way. And the culture is kind of corrupted as well. So how do, do we need technology to basically fight against culture? Is this like modern tribalism where we all get together and say, we're not going to take this and we're really angry and look at us talk about this a lot? Or is this something we can do on a personal level? Or is it just too difficult to do on a personal level?
I think, I say in one of my talks, the only thing to beat a bad system is a better one. I personally think the war that we'll see in the next 20 years will be with technology. It won't be like hackers or indie web coming to save the day. I have this nice chart that I created that kind of talks about the internet and then talks about networks and things and the internet. And then it talks about social networks. And then the next evolution would be, support networks, all these kind of Kickstarters and GoFundMes, and then kind of these creator networks, which rather than took their place where you can, like, somebody does one job and you pay them like, coffee and all these other types of services, Patreon, it's for a person, not for a cause. But now we've got this thing that I like to focus on a lot, which is mutual aid networks, whereas people or groups of people build or low code, no code, or whatever they want, small solutions to fix a single problem in a community. And when that's done, they move on. I kind of see that ant mentality. It's like a bunch of ants getting to fix something, kind of the thing that starts to topple down capitalism. I think that's what we were doing. It wasn't Bitcoin. It was people agreeing to build a spreadsheet together.
It sounds like you need to come and live in Canada. It seems like the way that you're looking at the world is very sort of like libertarian Canadian in a way. So
I don't know anymore. I'd come and live in Canada just because I think Justin Trudeau's hot, but that's just me. He's a 50-year-old gay guy.
Well, but there's the problem with politics in Canada at the same time. Basically,
I didn't say I wanted to vote for him. I want to go out to dinner with him.
Well, no, and this is it. Like in one sentence, you've described the problem with politics and the Prime Minister. Well, and certainly what people think about him up here. Okay, so I mean,
sorry, I missed where you were going with that. I get it now.
No, it's all good. What are the next steps for us? Like, if we were gonna choose a path in the next sort of 3 to 5 years, sort of outside of political realms, outside of sort of societal realms, but from a if I'm going to walk out of the door and buy a certain amount of technology to make my life incredible in the next 5 years, what should I go and buy?
Oh my God, I don't think anything really. I mean, everything we need is here. I mean, that's the good thing. I definitely would say if you're focusing on the next, first of all, let me just back up a minute.
Yeah.
If you're below 50, you've really got to get your act together because it is such a tenuous time. Now,
right.
If you're below 10, don't worry about it. If you're below 20, you probably are going to be fine once you get to your 30s. If you're between 20 and 30, you already know what I'm talking about. If you're between 30 and 50, you feel it. You just don't know what it is. I think we need to radically retool the world. If I'll give you the answer in two things. The first thing is what we need to do for everyone. We need to close all schools for 2 years, retrain every teacher and every student on just how to think, what to do, how technology works, just like re-engineer. We don't need solar power as much as we need people, seats and butts talking about what your phone does and how it figures it out. Yeah. That's group one. Group two, we need every single adult who's not in that 2-year reschool and teacher, who's not in that sitting down and looking at relationships in technology. So this is this, and just literally for like a day or two, because I think we have a real problem right now that a majority of the public either knows how to perform a service for someone else or send an email to someone else, and that's all they know how to do.
Right. So I'm very sort of.
I don't think buy anything. Sorry, I think we're way beyond buying anything. I think too many people get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to send email.
Right. Well, and this is the worry about, automated systems and the end of human employment, what I call, algorithmic employment. Step one, step two, step three, step four. If you can if you can define it on a piece of paper, you can encode it, and then you don't need that person in the corner, right? So,
but so many people won't even do so many people won't do the first step. I can't tell you how many clients I have that say, can you build me this? I'm like, can you draw it? Yeah. And that's the problem is like, I just wish we could just even talk about that. I mean, my spouse is a school teacher, right? And I was talking to him today, and I said, it's, you got the old carrot stick thing. He goes, no, I've also got a wind problem. I said, what's that? He goes, they don't even want to eat anymore, so we have to push them toward the food. I'm like, well, that used to be the carrot. He goes, no. I said that used to be the stick. It's just, I think fundamentally we have such unique human problems because we don't have that many problems anymore. I think so many people feel like there's so many problems. Well, not really. I mean, everything you do with your technology can kind of like save your time, but no one's spending it in the right way. But that also there's no way for people to really understand like their problems are a lot different than they were 10 years ago, and there can be a lot different 10 years from now. So like if you agree that everyone is not getting out alive, like no one's getting out alive, this is like everyone's gonna die, then the next thing you have to say, okay, then what problems do we fix to change the quality of life? And I'll end with this. My whole thing is, it's the only difference between the rich and the poor is how they spend their time. So like find a way to spend your time that makes it good for you and gives you time to support others. It's like it's not that hard. Yeah. I made sure when we bought this house that my husband and I could both keep our house and all our cars and all of our stuff by working at McDonald's part-time. So I figured out with the McDonald's literally a block away, paid for 2 part-time people 30 hours a month, and made sure our bills. So we just lowered our footprint. Now, do we make more money? Yes. But like, no, just focus on your time and then the rest will sort itself out.
So I think on that point, and we could talk about this stuff for hours, and we'd probably get angrier and angrier, and probably get happy and sad and all the other emotions that are truly human. Chris Dancy, I'm incredibly excited to have had this conversation with you. I really look forward to what's happening next. What's going on in your world, and what's happening?
I mean, I've got a few things. I mean, I just did a big article for Nokia about technology in the future. They're having me keynote their conference coming up. I just did the IBM World Mindfulness Day event. I think that'll be out for other people to see soon. I know they streamed it live. I miss kind of, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I mean, I used to get paid to travel and speak, so I can't do that anymore. I'm working on a new book about tooling our values instead of valuing our tools. So basically using your technology to map to your values. Because I'm seeing this really odd trend that, you know, people act one way here and another way there, and one way in this app and another way in this app, instead of saying this is who I am and the apps will work for me. So people really are starting to understand values. So I'm working on that new book. I have an app called Our Balance that's really cool that I spent 2 years building, and it looks at population well-being, which I call well-doing. So like you could just look at your neighborhood and how they're doing, not individually because it's all anonymous on the edge. Simple things like that. I mean, they're not simple things, but like to me, it's like, that's hot. I was just like, I don't know. I still have not tried microdosing, or I still haven't done anything with psychedelics. You know, my biohacking game is not as strong as most, but man, again, I always come back to like the strongest thing I can biohack is my mind, and it's pretty much weaponized.
Right. And on that point, thank you very much, Chris Dancy, the world's most connected person.
Thank you.
Just Google most connected, right, Chris?
Yeah, just those two words. I'm going for most. It used to be most connected man. That was most connected person. I just want most. I'm hoping somewhere in this decade you can just Google most.
That's when you become truly transcendent and a celebrity that we all must know, right? Right. Okay, Chris, thank you so much. And it's fantastic to chat to you. I look forward to your writings and your books. And yeah, I'm going to put some links down to some of the keynotes that I've seen Chris do that I think everyone should watch in the description. So Chris Dancy, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.